now, a couple of days after we painted the tow truck. It's all sealed, looking really good. So pretty happy to get that done. So tonight's job is to seam seal the bottom of the plenum. So it doesn't look the nicest, but good luck getting in there. These holes here, definitely a good idea. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without that, so definitely worth doing. What I ended up doing was I actually chopped the whole bottom of the plenum out back to the firewall. So what happens there is you've got one layer, so it actually comes off the top, well, the back of the plenum there, and then also another layer actually comes off the firewall. Then what happens is they meet here, they all get spot welded together, so you've actually got 3 panels meeting on this edge here, and then you've actually got 2 in there. The moisture gets in there, they flare up and they rust out. It's just a common issue for these trucks. Terrible idea, but that's how Ford build them. What I ended up doing was I actually cut that section out and replaced it with a piece of 2mm, and then butted it up where it actually bends around here. So there is no overlapping there, there's no overlapping there, there's no overlapping there. So that actually replaces the thickness that was already there. So there's no loss of strength in this panel. The only thing was, when I welded it together, I was actually trying to weld 3 different pieces together at once. So I had to run the heat up to actually get the weld to bite into all 3 pieces. And yeah, it turned out pretty good. It's just, I get very nervous about anything. So I don't want the possibility of there being a pinhole, possibly letting moisture in, rusting out, or leaking into the cab. What I ended up doing was, yeah, seam sealing it, and then also all the way in here. So where the bracket mounts this piece, where the end of the plenum meets the actual inside kick panel, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of overlapping panels and gaps. Basically Ford's designed it so water rushes in, goes between those panels, and they rust out. So what I've done is seam sealed all that. So there is no possibility of any moisture getting between the panels and flaring up and causing issues. So that is all done and finished. What I ended up doing was just a piece of rubber tube on the end of the Sikflex, and that's just long enough to reach the bottom, but it's also not too long to where it's very hard to squeeze out, because the longer you make it, the more pressure you've got to actually have, because it's restricting it. So keep it as short as possible, but long enough to reach the plenum floor. So your little scrubber for your dishes. So what I ended up doing was actually putting just a piece of pipe on the back. You don't have to burn it like me, I was just being a dickhead trying shit. Tape it up so it gives you enough length. And then what I ended up doing was, when I got back far enough, take this piece off and finish it off. So pretty much I would squeeze the Sikflex out through the plenum vents there, and then I'd run along and just scrape it back. So yeah, it's not the nicest job, but it's no different to like a brush on seam sealer really. And yeah, it sealed it up nicely, and reaching through here, it was just long enough to get to the center. So what I'm going to do is run some black through there with a 4-way spray and let it go and just give it a good coating. I really sort of hate having color in under there, it just looks shit to me. So I'll black it all out. It'll also seal it again, because I'll just use the mastic that's underneath. It's really good shit. And seal it all. I'll spray in here as well and just give everything a good coating. And that should keep this plenum hopefully mint for a very long time. First stage of this rust proofing for this tow truck. It's trial and error. I haven't done it like this before, but I want to give it a go. So most people would just get the cavity wax or the Fisherline or whatever you decide to use and spray that and call it done. I want to go that little bit further and hopefully prevent any issues in the future. So what I'm going to do is start with sealing the metal, painting the metal, and then I want to actually cavity wax after all that. So the idea is to seal the metal so that nothing can get in. Then I want to paint the metal so it's actually got a build over it, which also helps protect it. And then the cavity wax obviously stops anything from seeping through. If there is any moisture or water or anything, it can just run off the wax. That's the whole idea of it, and go from there. Yeah, the cavity wax these days, it used to go hard. These days still stays nice and waxy, and I've tested that because the Datsun, I did end up doing that, and it's still nice and waxy feeling. So mind the bench, it's still a bloody pigsty. So we've got the gun. It's a fancy blue tape. What this is this is actually a cavity spray bar, wand, whatever you want to call it. Comes with 2 others, and it's actually part of 3M's wand kit. So it actually does come with the can tops. So you pretty much just clip it on your can, off you go. But yeah, these tend to work a lot better than the 4-way spray bar. So I'll show you what I mean. Piece of paper, pen. So 4-way spray bar, you've got pretty much one going that way, one going that way, one going that way, one going that way. So when that jets out, you've got all this area here that's really not going to get sprayed too well, and it's going to be loaded up sort of there, if you know what I mean. It's pretty much where the bars are is where most of the fluid's going to go, and you're going to have these light areas, and unless you go through a heap of tines, you're not going to get a consistent sort of coverage. Even though you can't see it, it's not about looking flash, it's just trying to make it all even so that you don't have any areas you've missed, and possibly an area where rust can start. So the idea with this one is it's got these little 2-shape, Z-shape, whatever you want to call it, and what they do is they sort of change it so it actually sprays out like that and like that. So then you get all this area, and it, yeah, you watch it on the videos, you can actually go on YouTube and see it. It sprays a shit ton better and a lot more even. So that's the idea we're going for. So what I'm going to do is actually start off with Fahrenheit. So some people probably think this is shit, some people think it's good. I've used it a lot. I think it's still pretty good stuff. The problem that most people have, especially people that are new to it, is, or cars in general, they think that this actually gets rid of the rust. You'll never actually get rid of the rust with this shit. What this does is it actually seals the metal. So basically it holds on, goes over the top of it, and seals it off from obviously the elements, the moisture, oxygen, all that sort of shit, and stops the rust from actually continuing on. So this doesn't actually get rid of rust. All it does is seal it and shuts it off from the outside. So I'll start off with this, fill the bottom of the container. It's not the cheapest stuff, but at the same time, it's cheaper than finding a shitload of rust in your truck a few years down the track. So now I'm going to show you the areas that we actually do need to seal up to do cavity protection, all that sort of thing. So I'm also going to show you a few little tricks that I've done just with this truck to make access there, because the problem is with these trucks is there's a lot of areas where access is non-existent. Basically, it's you can't get in there, you can't do anything about it, and also there's build up in there, and a lot of the time once you open that area up, it's full of dirt, it's full of road dust and rocks and shit and all sorts of stuff over the years. This truck was reasonably bad. My truck was a lot worse, but luckily it didn't break out or do anything weird. This truck was also pretty good in a few spots where they usually broke out for that reason. So it works as a bit of a 2 birds 1 stone. So the inside here, so what you've got is this sort of box ledge piece that goes along on the rear here. The idea with this is there's a body mount, and also you've got your seat belt mounts and stuff there. The idea is to spray all the way along in there, the whole way along. So that's the first area. The second area is this panel here. So this one goes all the way along the back, and there is no actual way to spray in there or access it. You could try and feed it down through the roof and do a mad corner and shit, but I can see that's definitely going to be a nightmare and it's not worth it. So what I ended up doing was in the middle there, just a nice little 10mm hole, nothing over the top. You don't want to make it too big because you still got to put a grommet in there. At least that way, then if you do decide to recoat the whole thing with the cavity wax down the track, say another 5-10 years time, yeah, you can actually access it just by pulling the bung out, feeding the tube back up there, spraying it, sealing it back off. Makes that panel accessible, because these things are notorious for rusting inside, especially here, the pillar. It's mainly from moisture and stuff, so driver breathing, that sort of thing. just, yeah, windows down on a wet day, anything like that. But yeah, they do start to break out here. Mine did, and that's why I've got a few patches to do on it. So that's that. That makes that accessible, just something simple like that. Next one will be try and go down through the roof, down the pillar there, spray that, do the front pillar, same thing. If you had your truck, I'd probably spray around the roof. This one probably doesn't matter as much for the reason of I ended up spraying all this when I chopped the roof off. So I've already sort of sealed that, done that job already. So we won't really have to worry about that. And then, yeah, that's definitely something to focus on. If it was a standard truck where the roof was still all good, hadn't been touched, because they do get very rusty all the way around these areas, and especially in that back corner where the roof joins the pillar. It's always a bad spot. The doors, I won't need to do the first round. I will do the cavity wax once I do the rest. So this has already been painted black inside. The bottoms of the doors have already been cut off, painted, redone, that sort of thing. So if it was a standard set of doors, I'd definitely do the 3 stages. But this one, because I've already gone and done the first 2 basically, I only have to cavity wax these, so that should be right. The rockers, they're hollow, so they're pretty much just one panel. But what I ended up doing with these rockers is, as you can see, there's a nice hole there. So I actually drilled a 45mm hole. Probably doesn't need to be that big, but I had a fair bit of shit to get out of there, so I ended up drilling a fair size in it. Also, one onto the front there. So what that's going to do is now give us access to these bottom corners, so I'll be able to feed that up and go as far up as the tube will reach on both pillars, both sides. And that's a big key, because these areas are where they do let go, where they rust. And this area here usually fills up to about there somewhere, full of dirt and dust and grime and shit. And yeah, that's why they rot out most of the time. So the plenum will get the next stage, but there's no point Fahrenheit it because it's already painted inside. The only reason I'm doing the next stage is I want it black in there, not red. And also because I've done the sealant, I would like to actually seal that off with the paint. So the next stage will be done in there, and then I will probably, depending on what I decide to do, cavity wax can attract dirt and shit, but if it's worth it, I'll probably spray a bit in there just for peace of mind. So that's that. There's nothing really in the engine bay side of things. So the next one will be this top panel here. So this top panel, they don't really rot out too bad, but it does pay to do it. So yeah, you can pretty much enter in through here. There's one on the other side. Spray that shit in there. So do the 3 layers of all that sort of stuff, and that just seals off this nice. And then the bottom side, these areas do rust. I have actually had them on the other truck. I had to put some patches in it and all that sort of shit. It's now rotted out again anyway, so I've got a new one of these panels anyway. So the idea with this one is there is a couple of holes. So there's one there. So yeah, just under the radiator. One there, one on the other side. And that should be enough to actually feed the tube up. Push it all the way to the corner, which is probably right here. Pull it back, spray it, call it done. Then what I'd probably do is put a bung in there, and that'll seal it up. The reason I'm doing that is because I've already seam sealed every gap, every edge, so there's no just opening gaps like they normally would be from stock, and that lets all the water and shit in, and that's why they do rot away. The bonnet, so the bonnet will need to be done. Pretty easy. Enter in through the side there, spray all down there. I've welded most of the holes up, which probably doesn't help the cause, but yeah, feed it in through there, spray all inside between the skins. It'll help these things not rot away. Also, the front is definitely a big one, so you can just go in through the latch hole in the middle. Definitely spray that, because these bonnets always rot right at the front. It's just a big thing for them. So yeah, so that's that one. The only one I can really think of, and I've probably kicked myself in the arse here, but the actual bracing in behind the guard there. So the actual mount that runs all the way down keeps all this area strengthened up. Don't put your guards on first, spray them before you put them on, and yeah, they do rot out a lot going down this area. What I ended up doing was actually, before I primed them, painted them, I actually filled that area full of Fahrenheit and switched it around, and yeah, pretty much just coated the shit out of it. So I'm fairly confident that that area shouldn't be an issue, but for anyone else, I'd definitely, before you put them on, spray in there, do the 3-stage thing. Pretty much covered every cavity in these trucks. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but they're usually areas that do rot away, and they are areas that are a pain in the ass to fix. So, well, basically anything you need to fix is more of a pain in the ass, because you shouldn't need to fix it anyway. The bonnet is now off the hooks. So I actually tipped it in there and also sprayed it with the extension piece and whatnot. But then, yeah, I ended up with a fair bit of excessive product in there. So what I ended up doing was actually dropping it down, tilting it round, and I've covered this whole front side really good. So that was probably my main priority, because that's where they always break out. So it's actually now sealed in there, along the sides, along the bottom, back corners here, they tend to break out. So that's now good. It's probably going to be a bit hard to see, and I don't have enough battery for the camera, but all in there. So the floor is a different colour due to product curing. And yeah, all the way through the ribs, the centre skin, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, just tilted the bonnet round, let everything sort of do its thing. And yeah, that should have the bonnet fairly protected, which is, yeah, usually a big part where they break out. With this paint, it's going to act a bit different to the Fahrenheit. So hopefully I'll be able to just put it in, spray it, and it should spray nice and even. So I'm really hoping for that, just to make life a bit easier. What I'm using is the Hempel mastic. So pretty good stuff. It's the same as what I've used under the cab, on the chassis, on the floors, all that sort of stuff, under the guards. And the beauty of it is it's built for going over pretty much any surface, really. I've seen it go over some pretty shitty surfaces and not lift. So the idea is to spray it on and try and prep it as best as you can. But if you can't, this stuff sort of allows for that, which then means you can spray it on and it'll seal that surface off and hopefully stop anything from getting underneath. Also, if you're going to spray the plenum, remember that you've got a hole underneath the this area here. So that fella there, make sure you tape that up, and also one in the corner of the dash there, which is that one there. So if you don't want to paint everything else, it does pay to tape them up. So looking at the new freckles I've got and the state of this tarp, it's kind of a rough idea of how this deal went tonight. But anyway, so the idea is a good idea. I've just got to somehow figure out a better way to make it happen. So that gun probably isn't right for what I'm trying to do. At the same time, it's got a plastic bottle on it, and to really sort of force something out, a fine spray, you need quite a bit of pressure. That bottle's not going to handle it, so couldn't bang the pressure right up, because I run the risk of blowing the bottle in half and just sharing black paint fucking left, right and centre. Yeah, you're trying to shoot a lot of air down a narrow tube and then out a fine tip. So basically it's like putting your finger over the end of the gun. It's not really going to do too well. It's always going to try and go back out the vent, which is in the top. So yeah, if I can figure out some way to get like a gun that's got a pot on it or something that can handle a fair bit of pressure. I did thin it down a bit, but it's still fairly sort of heavy paint, so that probably wasn't helping the cause. But anyway, I pretty much ended up just taking all the tube and shit off and running the gun as just a normal underbody gun. Run the pressure up a little bit just so it'd spray further, and that seemed to work fairly well. So yeah, we've just got to do the third stage. So it's not as nice as I'd like. I would have just liked to feed the tube down, pull the trigger, wind it back. Everything's got a nice even spray on it. But yeah, without the knowledge or the skill and tools and shit. It hasn't quite happened, but luckily we've still got that third stage, which is the cavity wax. That will be the final buffer for the areas I really couldn't get to or just couldn't quite cover well enough. So plenum's all painted in there now, sealed up. Yeah, taping it off worked out alright. So it's kept the red areas nice and red. So yeah, managed to get it all the way up to the center. So there was a little bit of excessive paint in there, so I actually used the air gun and blew it around. So it was a bit of a pool there, so I sort of just blew it up that way, crept it all, and it seemed to work pretty well. So, and then yeah, spraying back this way, no worries. So that's all fairly well painted around here. So and the floor's sealed, so that's the main thing. That was my biggest concern. So that's all sorted. I ended up spraying up underneath the truck as well, so it's going to be hard to see, but up in the hole there. So yeah, a bit hard to see, but it's all 4 pillars. And also the paint runs down, so it should cover most of it. Not going to say it 100% will, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, also sprayed the radiator panel a bit, and I did the best I could with the bonnet. It's not going to be perfect, but it is what it is. So yeah, as far down the side as I could. Actually did make it a fair way though. In the centers, that's all sorted. That side, the front, did all the way, that way, best I could. So what will happen now is, yeah, just cavity wax it, and we should be right. This is 3M's cavity wax. It's meant to be really good stuff. I used a cheaper version, different brand, in the Datsun, and it's still nice and waxy, tacky. It's not gone hard or started to crack or anything. So it's preference. Some people like motor oil, other people like cavity wax, other people like Fisher-Lean. Take your pick, but this is what I'm going with. So, and with what I've done prior with the Fahrenheit and the paint and all that sort of stuff, this will just be an added bonus. So yeah, pretty big cans, which is good. The idea is take the cap off, put that cap straight on, tube's already on there, off you go. I'm one of those people, I like to load the fuck out of everything and make sure it's covered. So so unfortunately, yeah, I've got to get more, so that's sort of put a stop to it. I have got the areas that I sort of was focusing on to help me keep moving forward, so I can do the rest of it whenever, but I will be getting it straight away to get it done. Sprayed in here, I definitely prioritise here. This is where one of the main rot out areas was on my other truck, so I definitely made sure that this was all good. Sprayed down in the boxes, they also rot away, so hopefully now everything's sprayed up. It shouldn't be an issue now, and hopefully the water will just run straight through and out on the floor. It's a plan anyway. Highly recommend drilling holes in your rockers to get into your pillars, front and rear. Just makes life so much easier. And then say a few years down the track or whatever, you want to redo this process again, pull the grommets out, do it again. Inside, I ended up going the whole perimeter of the roof because there's a lot of joins and stuff. And one area I did probably load up a fair bit on was right here and right here. Reason of that is where the old roof line join used to be. As you can see, hands are probably a bit waxy, but roof join used to be here. This one was pretty bad, so I welded it up. One, I don't like the join there, it looks shit. And two, it was, yeah, it needed to be done anyway. So some people probably vote against that, but it's done now. So yeah, the only thing was I didn't cut it out completely and put new strip in there. I just welded it up. So probably the dodgy way to do it, but still made sure it was properly welded and all that sort of stuff. But it just means that the two skins on the flange inside are still there. So I definitely loaded up there so it's nice and covered. Hopefully that will stop all the moisture and stuff getting between those panels and trying to cause all sorts of shit to happen. Especially here, another gap or join, so I had to weld that up as well. So loaded up in there, ran it down the pillar. There's also a join here, and there was also a couple of holes in this one. So I've definitely made sure that that's sprayed, this one's sprayed. The only thing was, I got all the roof done, went to go to this back panel, and that's when I ran out. So this back panel, definitely worth focusing on. This truck was really bad. It had holes all through the back panel, that pillar, in the roof. It was just, that whole side was trashed. There were a few on this side as well. I've also got to do on the floor. This probably isn't a huge necessity, but still worth doing if you're going that way. Once we get more, I'll do the doors. Definitely focus on the corners and along the bottom, because that's where everything runs to. I'll maybe try and do up around the door frame if I can. Try and make not too much of a mess, and hopefully just a light film over the whole door if I can. I'll be focusing on the back corner here, because they do rot out right there. But I will be spraying all the way down there. Also, the front, I will be loading that to the shithouse, because that is where they let go. So I'll be focusing on probably the bottom side here. So where this lip folds over, I'll be trying to aim it upwards so it sprays in there. I'll be doing through all the skin, so through the middle, try and make the corners, all that sort of shit. Sides is on this side again. And yeah, these tend to trap a little bit of moisture in there, just because it is a cavity with a nice big opening. You've got cold temperature outside, you've got a hot engine on the inside. It's a bit of a recipe for shit to go wrong. So if I load it up with cavity wax and paint and Fahrenheit like I've done, I'm pretty confident that this bonnet should survive. So that will probably be all you'll need to do cab wise on your F truck. Tubs, another sort of thing. This one doesn't have it, and my tub, I'm changing it up a lot frame wise and all that sort of stuff to eliminate some of those areas. But there are cross members and stuff on those tubs. Definitely need to give them a look, front and rear. Tail light areas, probably a great one. Because they're another cavity. Once you put the tail light in, they are open at the bottom, but water, shit and stuff can still get inside. So I see it's probably not a bad idea to spray in there. So anyway, that's pretty much as far as I can go now that I've run out. I will get back into it as soon as the tins turn up. I just want it done so I can start assembling everything. I'll get back into it when I can. So that is all.